Salvador Dali is the most well-known surrealist and one of the most varied and prolific artists of the 20th century. Over the course of his lengthy career, he successfully transitioned from painting to sculpture, printmaking, fashion, advertising, literature, and perhaps most famously filmmaking in his partnerships with Alfred Hitchcock and Louis Buñuel. In addition to his unquestionable technical mastery, Dali was well known for his exuberant demeanor and role as a cunning provocateur. The influence of fellow Spaniards Pablo Picasso and Joan Miró can be seen in his early use of organic shape. The hyper-realistic manner and religious symbolism of his later works also demonstrate his love with classical and Renaissance art. Accomplishments: Dali's efforts to create a visual language that could depict his hallucinations and dreams are supported by Freudian theory. These are responsible for some of the recognizable and now commonplace pictures that helped Dali become extremely well-known both during and after his lifetime. Dali's work is replete with obsessive themes of sensuality, death, which speak to his acquaintance with and synthesis of the psychoanalytic theories of his era. Dali's work is full of readily interpreted symbolism, ranging from religious symbols to fetishes and animal imagery, and it draws heavily on his childhood memories and obviously autobiographical material. Although Dali accepted the automatism thesis of surrealist André Breton, he finally chose his own self-developed method of accessing the unconscious known as paranoid critical, which allowed one to mimic hallucination while yet remaining sane. This approach, which Dali himself paradoxically described as a type of irrational knowledge, was used by his peers, primarily surrealists, in a variety of mediums, including poetry, fashion, and film. Biography of Salvador Dali. Childhood. Dali was born into a wealthy middle-class family in the little town of Figueres outside of Barcelona. Before the artist was born, the family had a great deal of hardship because their first son, Salvador, passed away too soon. The young artist was frequently informed that he was his deceased brother's reincarnation, which undoubtedly sowed a number of thoughts in the impressionable child. His passion for art and his extravagant persona developed early on. He is said to have exhibited erratic, frantic, angry outbursts towards his playmates and relatives. The surrounding Catalan landscape served as a major source of inspiration for Dali from an early age, and many of these scenes would reoccur in his later significant paintings. His early interest in painting was heavily influenced by his mother and father, who were also lawyers. His first sketching classes began when he was 10 years old, and he dabbled with Impressionist and Pointillist techniques while attending the Madrid School of Fine Arts in his late teens. Dali said the loss of his mother to breast cancer at the age of 16 was the greatest blow I had experienced in my life. The adolescent artist's technically stunning charcoal drawings were displayed in the family home by his father when he was 19. Early training. Dali stayed at the Residencia de Estudiantes in Madrid when he enrolled in the special painting, sculpture and engraving school of San Fernando in 1922. It was there that Dali matured completely and began to embody his flamboyant and provocative persona with confidence. At first, his weirdness was more well-known than his artwork. His long hair and 19th-century English beats fashion sense, which included knee-length breeches, gave him the moniker dandy. At the time, he dabbled in whatever sparked his intense curiosity and experimented with a wide variety of artistic techniques. He surrounded himself with a number of prominent artists, such as poet Federico Garcia Lorca and filmmaker Louis Buñuel. The house itself introduced Dali to the most influential thinkers of the day, including Stravinsky, Le Corbusier, Einstein, and Calder. But in the end, Dali was dismissed from the academy in 1926 for making fun of one of his instructors on his last exam before graduating. Dali was inactive for several months after being dismissed from school. After that, he traveled to Paris to reproduce motion. He started researching Freud's, which changed his life. He was inspired by the work of the Cubists and paid a visit to Pablo Picasso in his studio. He had a strong interest in futurist attempts to depict objects from various, simultaneous angles and psychoanalytic ideas, as well as those of surrealists like Joan Miró and metaphysical painters like Giorgio de Chirico. As a result, he started employing psychoanalytic techniques to create imagery by tapping into the subconscious. The legacy of Salvador Dali. It is impossible to overlook Dali's revolutionary influence on the art world because he embodied the idea that life is the best form of art and mined it with such unwavering passion, purity of mission, and tenacious commitment to investigating and developing his different hobbies and crafts. His persistent and unreserved endeavor to turn the inward to the outward produced a body of work that not only advanced the ideas of psychoanalysis and surrealism on a global visual stage but also set an example for acceptance of individuals in all their human splendor, flaws and all. Dali created a universe of possibilities for artists who want to incorporate the intimate, the enigmatic, and the emotional into their work by using masterful painting methods and beautiful draftsmanship to show his pictorial depictions of his inner world and fantasies. Dali's unique and mysterious physical personality helped artists start to view themselves as brands. He demonstrated that Dali the work and Dali the man were one and the same. The viewer would be poked in real life by a manifestation of Dali's imagination intended to unsettle and evoke reaction, rather than just gazing at a beautiful work that evoked great imagination. In contrast to mass commercialization, which is frequently derided in the art world, Dali's hand touched so many different items and locations that he could be owned by anybody, anywhere. Today, this practice is so widespread that we see innovators like John Baldessari lending his pictures to skateboard decks or great architects like Frank Gehry creating unique rings and necklaces for Tiffany. Important art by Salvador Dali. Uncian Andalou, 1927. By the time Dali was 24, he had received an art education, had been influenced by Picasso to practice his own take on Cubism, and was starting to incorporate surrealist ideas into his paintings. With its dream logic, non-sequential sequences, lack of plot, and hint to Freudian free association, the picture drastically deviated from narrative tradition. It was at this moment that he collaborated with filmmaker Luis Buñuel to create something genuinely new. The Persistence of Memory, 1931. Dali claimed that the surrealist view of camembert cheese melting in the sun served as the inspiration for the forms of this famous and frequently imitated picture, which represents the fluidity of time as a succession of melting timepieces. The contrast between soft and hard materials emphasizes Dali's intention to subvert reality by giving his subjects traits that are the reverse of their typically inherent qualities and unreality that is frequently present in our dreamscapes. A swarm of ants surrounds them, eager to feed on the organic processes of decay and putrefaction that fascinated Dali so much. We could interpret this artwork as a meditation on the artist's immortality amidst the rocky cliffs of his Catalonian home because the melting flesh in the middle of it resembles Dali.